Hello, everyone. Today I'm here to start a new series titled JR's Gist of Things, in which I will talk about a variety of topics including neuroscience, philosophy, belief systems, and proper moral behavior in the world, among other various topics. Today's episode will involve mostly neuroscience, so let's begin. Firstly, I'd like to start off by disclosing that I am not a neuroscientist, but that I have learned a lot from neuroscience and the men and women who study the subject and espouse their findings. Of course, this is a fundamental and basic approach to a very complicated and nuanced science, which is still being heavily studied to this day by brilliant minds around the world. But nonetheless, this simple approach still remains useful for knowledge-gaining purposes and introducing ideas, especially when the topic contains significant amounts of jargon required for comprehending the concepts discussed therein. That being said, I will be discussing brain balance between the two hemispheres of the prefrontal neocortex, also known as the human brain, which humans have been solely gifted with and that are divided into two distinct parts, the left and the right brain. They work together to create a holistic intelligence within an individual, when in balance, that is. The prefrontal neocortex can be found directly behind your forehead and is more than likely the first portion of the brain one would see upon first glance at a dissected specimen, just considering its sheer size. In between the two brain hemispheres lies a portion of the brain called the corpus callosum. The corpus callosum is located exactly in between the two brain hemispheres, physically connects them, and is responsible for a number of actions, including sending signals back and forth between the left and right brain, although in this discussion we will keep the topic of the corpus callosum limited to effects it can have on the brain hemispheres overall when it is atrophying. If the corpus callosum deteriorates to the point of atrophy, then it becomes extremely difficult or even impossible to maintain brain balance. This is significant in that without brain balance and communication between the left and right brain hemispheres, there can be no full integration of the usages of the aspects of each side of the brain. Simply speaking, the left brain essentially deals with logical, linear, analytical thought processes. When individuals have an imbalance to the left brain hemisphere, and if the corpus callosum disintegrates through the process of atrophy, one can be trapped in the consciousness that is produced from the left brain imbalance. This can lead to rigid skepticism, atheistic and borderline nihilistic thought processes, as well as a whole host of justifications for extreme actions, which are almost always incorrectly named defense strategies, usually implemented by governments through often violent restrictions and controls on the lives of human beings everywhere. Continual living in the left brain after the corpus callosum has atrophied can cause an individual's consciousness to become locked into more rudimentary parts of the brain. In the case of a prolonged left brain imbalance, the consciousness of a person in this state becomes trapped in the thought processes of survival and ego-oriented behavior, due to most brain activity being taken over by the R complex, otherwise known as the reptilian brain, which can be found at the base of the brainstem near the cerebellum at the top of the spine. The R complex is responsible for fight or flight responses in human beings and animals, and is therefore not the proper portion of the brain to be used effectively in dealing with the world on a day-to-day basis, especially when not in the presence of any real danger, when the response is active with no threat actually detected. Conversely, the right brain basically deals with caring, imaginative, nurturing, artistic, and creative thought processes. To be clear, this is not the singular use of the entire right brain, nor can the left brain be summed up so easily and succinctly. However, in general, this is the standard manner in which the brain is divided and understood by way of categorizing perspectives of consciousness into one side or the other, broadly speaking, of course. The right brain, when imbalanced, tends to be characterized by solipsistic beliefs, having an unquestioning mindset, gullibility, and passive traits, including, but not limited to, pacifism and religious dogma. A person stuck in a right brain form of imbalance will have their consciousness locked into a separate portion of the brain called the limbic system, or the mammalian brain, which we share with all the other mammals. Prolonged imbalances of this variety can cause individuals to act emotionally, accept abhorrent and criminal, immoral activities due to an increased perception of "it's all good" mentality, most predominantly showcased in the days of the hippie stoners from the 60s and 70s, although this trend continues today through other means like the New Age movement. Another example being the religious fervor people have for not only traditional religions, but for more widespread and all-encompassing contemporary religions, such as government and money. This form of brain imbalance can cause emotional reactions to be the norm for individuals suffering from this specific ailment of the brain. Instead of factually looking into matters themselves and finding out the truth, individuals suffering from this form of brain imbalance will find themselves reacting emotionally rather than logically most of the time. Regardless of evidence to the contrary, individuals in this state refuse to look into that which goes against their belief systems. While maintaining a proper brain balance can be difficult, with a few suggestions, it could become easier with time. For example, there are opposing activities you can take part in depending on your brain imbalance, such as reading for the right brain imbalance and meditation for the left brain imbalance. There are some basic options for those who have the proper knowledge to diagnose themselves and others. Without proper balancing of the brain, it can unfortunately degrade to the point of next to no return, at which point the brain in an EKG machine or any other form of the brain scan, such as an MRI, would show darkened areas of the brain which have atrophied and become dull, nearly unusable, and would resemble Swiss cheese or craters on the moon. In closing, I would like to suggest activities which can help to provide a counterbalance to an imbalance you may have noticed within yourself. For all of the left brain imbalanced out there, consider trying meditation, art, creative writing, music, learning or listening to it, and any other form of intuitive work you can think of. Those with a right brain imbalance need to begin reading more, listening to more intellectual materials in the forms of seminar, presentations, podcasts, audiobooks, etc., studying various subjects eclectically and seriously, as well as brushing up on any logical and linear skills you may be lacking, such as math or language skills. Simply crunching a few numbers a day, look into gematria, that's Gematria, and looking into this can help bring a balance to the brain in the atrophying process of the corpus callosum if it hasn't been fully completed yet. The same goes for the right brain activities for those stuck in the left brain imbalance. Meditation does wonders for those who can't stop crunching numbers or thinking constantly. Although it will not be easy, and some may find it too difficult to even begin trying the balance process, the results will be worth it. I have only high hopes for those of you listening to this that you will be able to break your brain imbalance and bring back balance to your brain so you may become a greater version of yourself. It can be a long and arduous process, but the results will amaze you if you stick with it. Thank you.